Hello everyone and welcome back to another quick and fast ILS tutorial in the TBM on FS2020. We're going to make this really short, sweet, and simple for you, give you everything you need to know. We're only going to fly a 2-mile flight here, and I'm going to make it super simple. We're going to fly from executive here. I'm just going to go ahead and start up on the runway, no big deal there, and we're going to fly to Charleston International. Now we can go on an IFR flight plan, but I highly recommend not adding any special arrivals or approaches because it's a little messed up out here in the main menu, and it's a lot easier and simpler to do in the cockpit, and I'll show you what that looks like. So we're going to go ahead and start up, and as we're doing that I'm going to pull up SkyVector. So here's our airport. You can search it up here. You can click go and it'll bring you right to it. So you can zoom in and you want to click on that green dot. You click on it once, you can see this information. You can add stuff to a flight plan, but we don't want to do that. We want to hover over this link here, and we can see there's our airport diagram. We can go over here. Here's our localizer and ILS plate, or approach plate they're called. And you can see you got our frequency up here. We need to know that. We got the runway we're going to be using. We have some waypoints that we're going to add to get down to our runway. And we got some minimums information, missed approach information up here, but all you really need to focus on is 1, the frequency, and 2, this box right here. This shows you the slope down to the runway and the different areas or the different waypoints you're going to hit and the altitudes you want to be at. So at the Qatar, or at Shrimp, excuse me, you want to be at 3,000. At Qatar, 2,000. SOG-T, 1,040. So if you don't want to pull up this on a second monitor or your phone, you can come in here and I'll show you how to do it all from inside the cockpit. So to make it real simple and easy on us, we'll have one line, a direct line from here to our destination, which is only a few miles away. You can see it right here. It's right there. It takes just a second to get there. Now let's show you how to plug it in. First thing we want to do is go in here on our MFD, or multifunction display, which is this thing right here, and click on procedures, approach, and it already knows we're going to KCHS here. That's our airport we're trying to go to, and we're going to scroll down and we'll see the ILS, zoom in for you, ILS for 3-3. That's the one I want to do, and there's some different transitions you can do. For the only one that we get for our sake is the shrimp transition. We're going to load and activate. So really simple stuff. You can click on flight plan and you can see that. Now if I want to pull up this here, you can see that we're supposed to go to shrimp at 3,000 feet. But if you look onto our flight plan, it only plugged in the Qatar. It didn't actually use the shrimp. And at here, we want to be at the Qatar waypoint at 2,000 feet, and it'll tell you that. So that at this waypoint, you want to be at 2,000 feet. It's very important, and I'll show you why here. We'll go ahead and plug that in. Take note over here, we'll plug in 2,000 feet. After takeoff, we'll go 2,000 feet per minute. We'll be there in 1 minute. And we'll go in heading mode and click this to bug our current heading. I recommend taking off in heading mode, so after you take off and you're good and you're clear, you turn on the autopilot and it's going to fly you nice, steady, and straight and lets you focus on what you need to do. So just like that, we have plugged in the approach, and we can even zoom out and take a look at that, and we're good to go. Except for, again, that frequency here is, let me zoom out, 108.9er. If I look at my audios and radios and go to my nav1, it is not tuned in correctly. It says 110.5. Unfortunately, the game doesn't do it for you at this moment in time. I'm hoping they'll fix that. One way to do it yourself without pulling up SkyVector is go to waypoint info. Click on airport, select your airport. In our case, it's K, C, H, and S. We'll enter. You got some data you want here, some waypoint options, runways, but we want to go to frequencies and scroll down till you see the ILS that you want, in our case 3-3. Click on that and activate it. Now we can see, if we go back to audios and radios, it is now in there, 108.9er. To confirm, FS2089er. I highly recommend using the one they give you in the game. There is a chance that the one in real life is actually the correct one, but when you're flying in the game, you better use the one that they give you. Now, to make our life easy on us, we can go over here and we can see our active nav is FMS or GPS. It's going to follow that line. That's what we want for now. We are in heading mode on the autopilot on our annunciator panel up here. But to make your life a little easier on you, you can do two things. You can go over here to PFD and you can activate your datas. So right now we're going to have the nav 1 to our first waypoint. It's 6.5 miles. And over here we'll go to nav 1, which is what our ILS is on. Right now we have no data. We're too low and we can't pick up the frequencies the airport's sending out. You can also go on PFD settings and change it here as well, just to let you know. You can also click on other, and you can add your wind right here and some other options, so definitely take a look at that for yourself. But for now, we want those two things, the GPS data and then the nav1 or ILS data. So right now we are good to go. So we'll turn off the parking brake, we got our flaps set, and we're good to go. So we'll go ahead and take off real fast here. We're going to be looking for 90 knots in the TBM. The nose is getting light, and there we go. We're off, positive rate, gears coming up. Now we can turn on the autopilot and our yaw damper. So right now we're flying runway heading, and now we're safe to go into nav mode. It's going to start our left turn to get on this waypoint. And again, we want to be at the Qatar at 2,000 feet here. You can see that there and there. And as you can see, we're on our way to 2,000 feet. I'm going to go ahead and pull the power back a little bit because it's a super short flight and this is all going to happen really fast. And I'm not trying to go too fast. We have a nice climb coming up to 2,000 feet. And now we're going to start leveling off here in a second. And I'll show you what to set up next. We'll go down here and we'll zoom in just so you have a better idea of where we're at on the GPS. Now, in real life, you will get vectors to final, or they'll have you follow a certain transition. But in our case, since we're not talking with ATC, once we get on this line for our final approach course, which is just along this line here, you can actually see our airport is just up here in front of us. You'll get a better view here in a second. It's actually hiding over there. And we're going to be holding at 2,000. And once the plane levels off nice and straight for our first waypoint, we'll start turning on the approach. Again, I highly recommend going into heading mode, and I'll show you why. If I switch this frequency now, it's going to start turning all over the place. I want to maintain straight towards that waypoint here. So we're on the FMS mode, we're on our navigation on our GPS. So I'm going to slow down the speed here, and as we are now straightening out, we can click on this button to bug our current heading. We'll stay in heading mode. Now that we're in heading mode, we're safe to turn on our active nav to the localizer. And now we can click approach mode. Nothing's going to happen just yet except for these two white symbols. First one being the localizer. That means we're going to follow the current heading until we intercept this localizer. There it is. Localizer captured. And now we're going to hold our altitude until we capture the glide slope. Here is the glide slope right here. And once it hits close to our current altitude, which is right here, you'll see your altitude will turn into a green glide slope, which is exactly what you want to see here in the next 5 seconds. There it is. So now you want to make sure you got your flaps in, you got your gear down. So put flaps in gear. We'll do that first notch of flaps. Go ahead and do our second notch as well. And we're going to hold our final approach speed, which is 85 knots on the TBM. There's the runway, just like that. We have a little bit of a crosswind, so you can see my nose is pointing off to the left. I'm using real-time weather right now and real-time data. So that's pretty cool. Couple knots of wind up here, and you can see I'm crabbing just a slight bit to the left so that I'm maintaining right on that localizer. So it does all that calculation for you, which is super handy in those bad weather, bad visibility situations. Luckily it's nice and clear out for us today, and it's going to continue following us down on that localizer path and on that glide slope. So one more time as we're coming in nice and slow here, I do recommend before you come into that first waypoint, or fix as you call it, again one more time on here, before you hit your first fix, whatever it plugs in for you, I recommend going on that heading mode. Therefore, your localizer and your glide slope will come up as white until you reach it. Makes it a little bit easier for you. So let's confirm here. We got our gear down. We got both notches of flaps in, and we're holding just about 85. And right now we're hands off. And then a really important thing that you don't need to follow if you're just trying to do it for your first time, but maybe later or on bad visibilities, you can see your minimums. If we don't see the runway here by 200 feet or a quarter-mile visibility, then we have to abort. Of course, it's super clear today and it's not a big deal, but also at that 200-foot mark off the runway, that's a good time to turn off your autopilot and fly it yourself all the way down to the numbers. But for now, we're going to keep it the way it is. Looks like we're getting a little bit of turbulence kind of bouncing around, which is okay. The plane's keeping us right where we want to be. Another thing to take note of is your RA, your real altitude. That's your altitude AGL, above ground level. It pops up anything under 2,500 feet. So you can kind of have a rough idea of how close are you to that runway, or how far above the ground are you currently sitting. So coming in, nice and stable approach. We're right on that glide slope. We're right on the runway center line here. Again, do have that crosswind, so it's definitely going to be a little interesting for my landing here. I'm going to pray for nice butter landing, nice greaser. Don't want to bounce it. But that's really all it takes. You go into your procedures, you plug in the one you want, make sure you find that frequency, put that in your nav 1, and as you're coming in to intercept that localizer, that's the time you want to stay on heading mode, activate approach mode, get your gear and your flaps in, and monitor your speed. That's all you really have to do here. We're coming up to our 200 feet. Now's a good time to get your hands on your yoke or your joystick, whatever you've got. And I can go ahead and turn off the autopilot there at 200 feet. We'll point for the numbers. And as soon as we get over these numbers, we'll pull back the power and we'll flare out and try to touch down about the 1,000-foot markers, which are these big white rectangles here in front of me. Let the plane sink on its own. Nice smooth landing here. Get that nose wheel down, and we'll go into beta or reverse. Slow it down without using the brakes. Go ahead and hit the brakes, come out of beta, and we'll turn off here. So just like that, it's really that simple. All you got to do is make sure you've got the proper information in, and everything else you can really do inside the cockpit. You do not need that second monitor up or another phone or an iPad. You really don't need it. It's definitely helpful to have it up and might give you a glimpse into what the real world ILS flying and approaches look like. But that is all you need to know. You got to plug it in here on your procedures, search up that frequency, and once you're getting pretty close, you can activate that approach mode, and it should take care of the rest for you. Make sure you're at that right altitude so that you do capture it. If not, you might be too high or too low, and it might give you some issues. So make sure you're at that right altitude. And again, you can go into flight plan and scroll down and see 2,000 feet at my first waypoint. If you guys have any questions at all, I'm happy to help out And if you guys would like to see any other tutorials or have any other questions, please let me know, and I'm definitely happy to help out. But again, thanks for watching, and take it easy. Fly safe.